What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to week 2 of NFL picks. Week 1, it was an amazing opening weekend for the NFL. We had an amazing game Thursday, an amazing game Friday, obviously, an amazing slate on Sunday, and then an amazing Monday night game. So, now that week 1 is past us, we are starting to get to that point where we're going to start to see those teams separate from each other. We're going to start to see the great teams separate, and we're going to really start to get an idea of who the teams that are in store for a rough season could actually be. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. Last week I went 11-5, and I really feel like for that being week 1, I've always said week 1 is the toughest week to predict. So I actually feel really good that I was able to go 11-5 and get a real, do relatively well. I feel like a lot of the 50-50 games and some of the questionable picks I made, they ended up playing out in my favor. I picked the Raiders to beat the Patriots. I picked the Colts to beat the Dolphins. So week 1 is always just one of those weird weeks. You really don't know what's going to happen, but in the end, feel good about how I did last week. So, getting into the action for week 2 and starting off with Thursday night football, the Commanders and the Packers in Lambeau Field. And this is going to be a very interesting and exciting matchup. Going to be interesting to see how Jaden Daniels in Washington can go up against this new Packers defense with Micah Parsons. Um, but I will say that I feel like this being early in the year, we saw Washington, you know, get wins just like in the spot last year. So I don't certainly do not think it would be shocking to see them win. However, I will say that I feel like even though we saw Washington win and, we saw them do all right, it really doesn't feel like they reached their ceiling. It still feels like they have some things to work on. And who really doesn't? But typically, these Thursday games, you do have to favor the home team. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to pick the Packers to win and get off to a 2-0 start. Heading into the Sunday action and an NFC East matchup, the Giants at the Cowboys. And for the Giants, I mean, you're already hearing potentially about Russell Wilson moving to the bench soon, which, for it only being week 2, I think goes to show that there could be some real panic mode in New York. As far as the Cowboys go, they had opportunities on opening night, but they just let them slip right through their hands. CeeDee Lamb dropped some really crucial passes. So at the end of the day, both teams looking to rebound, but the Cowboys have relatively taken care of the Giants every year the past couple years, and I don't see that changing here. I think Dallas comes out. I think they take care of business. I think they improve their record of 1-1, and the Giants. It just feels like it could really be a very rough year for them considering their schedule and now a potential quarterback controversy. So I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win here. Next game, Seahawks Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a pretty interesting matchup looking at it. It feels like Seattle had a great opportunity versus the 49ers and they just let it slip right through their hands. And as far as Pittsburgh goes, they got into a shootout with the Jets and they came out on top, but they made Justin Fields look pretty good in that game. So, really, both teams that can definitely improve. But I think as far as Seattle goes, it stings that they couldn't get that win last week against the 49ers at home. So now you got to come to Pittsburgh, which is going to be a tough matchup. And I do think Seattle can hang with them throughout the game, but I just think in the end, the fact that it's in Pittsburgh, I think you got to favor Aaron Rodgers because he looked like the old Aaron Rodgers. He looked like the Aaron Rodgers that we all know and love last week. And of course, it's only week 1, but I got to go with Pittsburgh to get the win here. Next game, the Rams and the Titans. And for Tennessee and Cam Ward, it never really felt like they were out of that game against Denver last week, but it also feels like they don't have the firepower yet to compete with some of the better teams in this league, the Rams being one of them. Now, we saw the Rams last week kind of have a sluggish day on offense. It, did not look like the Rams offense that we have known at its peak. We got to consider a couple things. Matthew Stafford is still dealing with that injury, and it's week one. Everything's going to look a little sluggish week one. I just don't think Tennessee has the firepower yet to keep up with the Rams. Therefore, I think you're going to see this Los Angeles offense really start to get back on track this week. I think you're going to see the Rams win. Next game, another interesting one. The Bills and the Jets. And as far as Buffalo goes, that game last week we saw versus the Ravens is game of the year. I do not think there's going to be another game this season that tops it. I don't think the Super Bowl is going to top it. That was game of the year. And as far as the Jets go, they played in the other great game in week one versus Pittsburgh. Justin Fields had a really great day. We saw the Jets fight till the very end. And I think it definitely gives Jets fans a little something to look forward to for the rest of the year and what they could have in Justin Fields. But I just think Buffalo's on a different level right now. So I gotta pick the Bills. I think for the Jets, if they could it's for them right now, I think it's about being competitive in these games and eventually maybe later down the stretch, you're gonna steal a couple of them. But right now, I just think Buffalo's on a different level. So give me the Bills. Another AFC East matchup, this time down in Miami, the Patriots and the Dolphins. And both teams had considerably disappointing week ones. The Patriots lost to the Raiders, the Colts beat the Dolphins. So both teams really looking to rebound, but honestly, with the makeup of everything, I can actually trust New England, I think, to get things back on track more so than Miami right now. I just feel like the Dolphins, they're another team that I think they're still trying to figure things out, and it wouldn't shock me if they are in store for a rough season. They haven't been able to get Tyreek Hill going, really none at all last season. They really weren't able to do it last week, and Mike Vrabel, I'm confident, is going to have that team more prepared and ready to go for this one. So give me the Patriots to get the win, get the first one of the season, and Miami dropped 0-2. I know the Dolphins typically get the game versus the Patriots in Miami, but it just feels like it could really be one of those years for the Dolphins, so I'm going to pick the Patriots. Next game, and this is an interesting matchup. The Jaguars and Bengals, Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. And it definitely has the potential, I think, to turn into a shootout. But I think the question for Jacksonville is with Liam Cohen. We saw them beat up on the Panthers last week, but are they capable of now going up against some of the better offenses in this league? And Cincinnati is one of the best offenses in this league. And it's going to be very crucial to keep up with them if you want to win this game. And I just don't know if Jacksonville is at that point yet. So in the end, I'm going to pick the Bengals to win. I think they get off to a 2-0 start. Jacksonville drops down to 1-1. Next game in the Superdome, the 49ers and the Saints. And both teams had considerably sloppy, lower scoring games last week. The 49ers kind of got an ugly one, I guess you could call it, up in Seattle. And the Saints lost to the Cardinals. I do know San Francisco is dealing with injuries. George Kittle is out with a hamstring injury, and I believe it's also come out now that Brock Purdy is dealing with some injuries. Most other weeks, I think this could really derail them. Mac Jones is their backup, but the Saints are going to be one of the worst teams in the league all season. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pick San Francisco to win. Next game, another division matchup. The Browns and the Ravens, and Baltimore has just got to be hitting themselves in the head for how that game went Sunday night in Orchard Park. I really don't know how it got away from them. they had an explosive offense that was going all game. They were holding Buffalo in check, but they couldn't when it matters most. But having the Browns here, I don't really think there's much more that needs to be said. I think the Ravens are going to take out some frustration this week. I think they're going to beat Cleveland up pretty good. Another division matchup here, this time in the NFC North. And Chicago, they're another team that they had that game pretty much on lock, dominated for the first three quarters, but then in the fourth quarter, they could not stop J.J. McCarthy and that Vikings offense. And really, I think now it raises some question marks for Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. As far as Detroit goes, they had a very rough outing in Lambeau Field in week one, and it feels like they're trying to get into the groove of things without Ben Johnson, who is returning to Detroit, having two new coordinators in the case of the Lions. And, it feels like this could be a statement game for Ben Johnson. It could definitely be a great spot to do it. I don't see the Lions starting 0-2. I think it could be a close game, but I think Detroit is going to find a way to win. You still have a lot of the same pieces there. I think you give them another week, you put them at home. It's a little more easier to gel in. I'm going to pick the Lions to win this game. Next game, moving into late window, the Broncos and the Colts. And, this is a game that I really think before and after seeing the Colts week one, I think the story is a little different. And even seeing Denver where they won, but it felt like they were keeping Tennessee in the game, throughout. They weren't able to put them away, and we saw the Colts just dominate the Dolphins. It feels like I don't know what this is going to lead to with the Colts. I don't know how good Daniel Jones really is. I don't know if maybe this is just like how the Saints started last year, or if this could be a potential, Sam Darnold in Minnesota story. But I think one thing is obvious. Shane Steichen is fighting for his job, and he's put the guy out there who I do think gives them the best chance at this point to win football games and be out on that field. So it's a tough decision, but I'm actually going to pick the Colts here to win. I think that Denver, we see they still have a little work to do, and the Colts, I feel like they're going to be sneaky enough to be able to pull this one out. Next game is the Panthers and the Cardinals, and for Carolina, there was a lot of, I think, high hopes heading into the season for what they could have been, but now I really think that all comes back down to earth. And as far as the Cardinals go, they got the win in New Orleans, but it certainly felt like they did leave some on the table. They let the Saints stick around, a little too late into the game. The score only ended 20-13 Arizona. So put it in Glendale. I still think that you favor Arizona to win, and I am going to pick the Cardinals. I get the feeling it's going to be a low-scoring game, but I think in the end, you're going to see Arizona find a way to pull it out. Next game, and it is the Super Bowl rematch. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. And I don't think there's very many games that are going to be able to compete with that Buffalo-Baltimore game. And I don't think this is topping it, but if I think it could be a close to when it's all said and done, being the Super Bowl rematch. Now, for obviously both teams, Kansas City had a really disappointing week one, and Philadelphia, while they won, it still felt like they left some on the table. They never really, were able to put Dallas away. Jalen Carter being out also affected that, which we haven't heard if Jalen Carter could face further disciplinary action. But with all of that being said, it feels like it could be a high-scoring game. It feels like it could be a low-scoring game. It feels like it could be anything in between. All you know is I think the game is coming down to the end, but I refuse. I do not see the Chiefs starting 0-2. I really do not. So I think Kansas City is going to win. And, what I think is going to be a higher scoring game. I think you're going to see that offense. We did see it at the end of that game versus the Chargers, them start to come to life with some big plays. I think you're going to see them build on that. I think you're going to see the Chiefs come out. I think you're going to see them pull off a win here in week 2 to get their revenge from what happened in New Orleans in February. Next game, Sunday Night Football. The Falcons and the Vikings, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, and J.J. McCarthy had an amazing outing last night in Chicago for it being his first ever game. He really came to life in that fourth quarter. It's going to be a tough game for the Falcons. It is. But, obviously I'm going to talk about it later in the week as I always do. But I'm still picking the Falcons to win because I really do feel like that the Falcons, what we have seen from Michael Penix is we are seeing a guy that is giving this team a chance to win every week. And even though the defense, they definitely left a lot out there to be desired versus Tampa, it still feels like we saw flashes. And as much as I think we saw J.J. McCarthy really, put a lot of the noise to bed in the fourth quarter, we still got to keep in mind this is only a second start. And the Bears also, it feels like, really let that game slip away. So, two young quarterbacks going up against each other. It's going to be a very interesting matchup. And it could go either way. But I'm putting confidence in my team. I think the Falcons are going to find a way to pull it out. Heading into Monday, we have 2 Monday night games. We have a Monday night doubleheader. The first of 2 games being at 7 o'clock. The Buccaneers going into Houston to take on the Texans. And this it really feels like an interesting spot. It almost feels like a, spot where you get the feeling Tampa might find a way to pull it out. But at the same time, I think for the Texans, after really not being able to get their offense going at all against the Rams last week, they got to come out and they got to make a statement. So I'm going to pick the Texans to win. I think they get back on track. I think they give the Bucs their first loss of the year, and both teams come out of this game 1-1. And the final game of the week starts at 10 p.m. Eastern on Monday night. So I'm sure by the time this game ends, pretty much all the East Coast is going to be asleep. But it's going to be a fun game. A battle between 2 1-0 teams. The Chargers, the Raiders. We saw the Chargers get that big win versus the Chiefs. We saw the Raiders get a win up in Foxborough. So being in Vegas, it's going to be an interesting game. I've said this. I think the Raiders have some very interesting pieces on offense. I also think we see the Chargers and what they're able to do. We saw Justin Herbert have a great game. And it feels like one that could go either way. But in the end, I am going with the quarterback that I have most confidence in, and that is Justin Herbert. I think that he is going to find a way to get this Chargers team the win to go to 2-0. I just feel like for the Raiders, this is a big game for them to see really how legit they could be. And they are at home too, so I do think that is an advantage for them. But I am still going to pick the Chargers. But anyways, appreciate everyone for watching. Remember to like, remember to subscribe, remember to share it out. And I will see you all in the next one.